Spring 2014. I was in the final stretch of my second year as a college student. Classes had just resumed not too long ago after a seemingly short spring break. Midterms were again around the corner, but those exams would have to wait. One of my best friends, Adam, was graduating this year. He already had a job waiting for him in the Big Apple, New York City. As soon as he shakes the chancellor's hand and walks down that auditorium, he's on the next flight out of California. Normally, Adam and I, along with a few other friends, would always go camping in the summertime, but this year will be different. To make up for the camping trip, we decided to skip our Friday class and go camping for one last time. May 16, 2014. The morning of the camping trip was cold. The marine layer had snuck itself inland while we were sleeping and had blanketed itself all over San Diego. I had woken up that morning before the sun had risen, but after the clouds had already laid claim to the sky above. A few of our friends had left earlier that morning to secure our camping spot. Adam and I were going to join them a bit later. We began making our way to the campgrounds at around 1 p.m. that afternoon. By that time, the sun had burned away most of the marine layer and began warming up the city with its gaze. The beach and city quickly left our sights and weathered into a desolate sandy brown as we drove across Interstate 8. And as soon as the cityscape had transformed itself into desert, the desert sand too had seemingly coagulated into solid rock, turning itself into impressive granite mountains. After some time of twisting and turning our way through the mountains, we had arrived at our destination 2 hours later. When we arrived, we were greeted by Kevin, who volunteered to stay behind to watch over the camp while the rest of the group were on a hike. About an hour and a half later, a familiar voice was heard in the distance. I thought to myself, that sounds a lot like Heather. Almost immediately after that thought had popped into my head, Heather emerged from the brush with the rest of the group. Though the sun had not yet set, it had retreated behind the mountains, leaving behind an ash blue hue to remind us of the night that is yet to come. In the darkness, small bubbles of yellow and orange spontaneously appeared all around the trees and foliage. I volunteered myself to do cooking duties. We congregated around the fire to eat and keep warm. Stories and gossip were exchanged around the fire like the generations of humans that had done so before us. Eventually, the fatigue from the day began to take its toll, and everyone around the fire pit slowly dispersed. I was still wide awake and had been in deep conversation with Heather and Adam about graduation and life after school. With quiet hours in the park quickly approaching and the rest of the group wanting to go to sleep, it seemed like my night too was about to be over. That would have been the case, but Adam was not going to let the night end prematurely. It was his last camping retreat as a student, and there was still one more tradition to complete before he graduated. The night had only just begun. Adam had told Heather and I to meet him by his car at around 11 p.m. Heather wanted to stop by the restroom before we met up with Adam, so she wouldn't have to go alone. I went along with her. The restrooms closest to our campsite had been closed for maintenance, so we were forced to make our way across the other side of the park. After Heather emerged from the restroom, she looked towards my direction, but her gaze was directed behind me. I followed her lead and turned around to identify what she was looking at. Darkness. The faint embers in the distance provided no visibility beyond a dim afterthought of what once was. Heather quickly stepped beside me with her arms folded in as if trying to protect herself from something. We started making our way back to our campsite where Adam's car was located. As we were walking, I noticed Heather's strides gradually accelerate. Occasionally, she would look over her shoulder. With each succeeding glance, her complexion grew more pale. My curiosity had gotten the best of me, and I asked her, "What's wrong?" Heather paused a moment, let out a sigh, and shook her head. It's nothing," she said. Unconvinced, I turned around and scanned the area once more. The single light illuminating from the restroom instantly drew my attention towards it. My eyes followed the light downward to where the trees had etched their imposing figure onto the ground. Their shadows appeared to follow us, stretching and constricting and crawling ever closer to our feet until it vanished. The light from the restroom had just cut off for a split second before coming back on. It then proceeded to flicker on and off, as if it were in a fight for its life against the darkness. Satisfied that nothing there was out of the ordinary, I let out a deep sigh. Just then, in my short moment of relaxation, an ominous shadow crept into the far side of my field of vision. It skipped across the other side of my eye before disappearing into the cover of darkness. The mysterious figure was uniform in shape and size, and contrasted the irregular fractals cast by the tree's branches. I shifted my focus towards the direction of where my eyes believed the shadowy figure was last seen. By this time, Heather's curiosity overpowered her anxiety and joined me in my search. Her eyes were wide open, unwavering and determined to catch a glimpse of the culprit. "You saw it, right?" she said. I stood there, unable to give her a response. I didn't know what I saw or what I didn't see. Heather raised her hands to her face and began rubbing her eyes, as if she were erasing the image of what she had just seen from her head. "This is crazy," she exclaimed with a forced smile. Realizing the absurdity of the situation, I turned back and shrugged off the figure as a symptom of fatigue. "Heather, it's probably just nothing. Come on, Adam's waiting for us. Let's just go." As we approached Adam's car, Heather's initial tension slowly eased. She probably also came to the same conclusion that what had just transpired must have been in our heads. We were both greeted by Adam when we finally reached his car. Standing beside him was Ava. "Alright, looks like everyone's here. Let's head out." We all agreed and got into Adam's car and set off on our way. After about 10 or 15 minutes of pitch-black winding roads, we arrived at the lake. Adam pulled into a parking lot overseeing the lake. Surprisingly, the lot was not gated, nor were there any park rangers patrolling the premise to make sure people like us don't trespass after closing hours. Adam parked his car around the middle of the parking lot. We exited his car and made our way to the dock. Once there, we settled ourselves along the edges with our legs dangling out above the water. From my vantage point, I was able to see across the other side of the lake. The full force of the moon provided a backlight to the rolling hills beyond the lake. As I looked across the lake, I couldn't shake off this unsettling feeling that something out there was staring right back at me. As we entered deeper into the night, the temperature had dropped significantly. The drop had been so gradual, yet so abrupt, that we found ourselves huddled together to try to stay warm. At some point, we realized the futility of fighting the cold, so once again, we migrated our conversation, this time inside Adam's car. The comfort of Adam's car became quite apparent almost immediately after settling into his car. Heather and Adam had fallen asleep. Ava and I didn't fare any better as we slowly drifted in and out of sleep. Unable to fight it off any longer, Ava woke up Adam and suggested that maybe it was time for us to head back. Before Adam could start his car, Ava interrupted him. "Wait, Adam! Let me use the restroom first before we go." Both of the girls exited the car and made their way across the parking lot. I watched as they entered into the area lit by the single restroom lamp before disappearing into the shadows. A few minutes passed since the girls left the car, and the same urge had manifested inside of me. I got out of the car and quickly made my way over to the restrooms to join Ava and Heather. When I arrived, both girls were nowhere to be seen. There were 2 doors facing the direction of the lake on this side of the building. Both doors were locked, as indicated by a red occupied sign right above their handles. Must be Ava and Heather, I thought to myself. I made my way around the building to the opposite side facing the road. Fortunately for me, the restrooms on this side were unlocked, so I made my way inside to conduct my business. Inside of the restroom was dark and musky. A single toilet sat in the back of the room. Next to it was a push-on sink with a small mirror dangling above it. The mirror was marked with scratches and graffiti. Upon entering, I flipped the light switch to the left of the door on. It flickered on and off a few times before settling to a dim glow. It made a harsh buzzing noise that echoed around the empty room. There was a strange air in that room that felt heavy and uncomfortable. After I finished, I made my way back around to the lit side of the building. Again, Ava and Heather were nowhere to be seen. I noticed that one of the doors now read vacant above its handle. The other door remained unchanged. I thought to myself, that's strange. Why would Ava or Heather leave without the other? Did they see me walking here? Was Ava or Heather just really cold and couldn't wait for the other person to finish before going back to the car? These thoughts cycled through my head as I tried to rationalize why only one of the doors was now unlocked. Then, I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. I couldn't explain it, but it felt as if someone or something was watching me. Whoever it was close. Nearby. No. It felt like it was behind me. Quickly, I turned around. Nothing. You're an idiot. You're just tired and you're just imagining things. Just then, the muted sound of a toilet flushing could be heard coming from the locked door. A short moment later, I heard the muffled sound of running water come and go. I then turned my torso and positioned myself towards the parking lot, ready to get back to the safety and warmth of Adam's car. 10 seconds went by. Those 10 seconds turned to 30 seconds, and 30 seconds turned to well over a minute, but no one was coming out from the restroom. The sign above the door still read occupied. Still facing the direction of Adam's car, I noticed a shadowy figure emerge behind the light. The shadow was as black as can be. Even among the dark background of night, the figure absorbed all the light around it, leaving behind a silhouette of emptiness. I couldn't help but feel its menacing gaze lock into my eyes. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to turn away, but its gravity pulled my attention back towards it. The figure continued its path towards me, slowly inching its way across the parking lot. Its movements were stiff and abrupt. As it approached closer, it carried with it the sound of white noise. It stopped at the border of the furthest edge of light, just before it was about to enter the domain claimed by that single lamp on the side of the building. The aberration stood there, staring at me, protected from discovery by the veil of night. "Heather?" I whispered to the shadow. As I called out Heather's name, the shadow let out a faint whisper as if it were taunting me. The opaque figure then slowly began dissolving into darkness, turning translucent before vanishing into the darkness. My eyes were still fixated on the spot where that shadow once stood. Did that just really happen? No. You're tired. It's all in your head. I'm gonna close my eyes now and count to 10 and just head back. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,